Good morning. We are going to complete our shutter speed assignment today using Photoshop. Please follow along. It's going to be similar to your aperture and depth of field assignment that you created previously. Here we go. I'm going to set up a new document. Similar to my aperture and depth of field assignment, I'm going to set my parameters to 10 inches wide and 7 inches tall. You can make sure that all of your settings correspond to this. I'm also going to give my project a name. I'm going to call it shutter speed because that's what I'm trying to show today. I'm trying to demonstrate my understanding of motion, whether I want to freeze motion or whether I want to imply motion. So here's my document. I'm going to start by creating some squares on my document. Each of my squares is going to be 3 inches by 3 inches. And so here we go. I hold down Shift when I create my square to make sure it's perfectly square and the dimensions are the same height as they are wide. There's my first square. Once I've created that, I can just go over here to my Tools panel. I am going to move a little bit quicker because we've done something like this before. And I'm going to just go ahead and copy the rectangle, and then I'm going to slide it over. Remember that I like to kind of just connect them right there, and then I'm going to nudge it 10 spaces using my keyboard, the arrow on my keyboard, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, and then I'm going to repeat that again. I'm going to duplicate the layer, and then select OK. And now I can do the same thing one more time. Again, I just sort of let them snap together. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right? I do ask that when you complete the assignment, that you take care in making sure your squares are the same size, that there's the same sort of separation between each square. It shows pride in work, and it'll make your finished product look that much more professional. Okay, you can see I just used my arrow keys. I highlighted all of these. I can do that by holding one down, holding down Control on my keyboard, and then I select each of the rectangles, and then I use my arrows on my keyboard to nudge it left or right so that I have approximately even spacing on each side. Once I feel good about that, I can just take all of my rectangles while they're highlighted. I'm going to right click, I'm going to say duplicate layers, right? And then you can see 3 new rectangles have been added. I'm just going to drag those straight down. And then I'm going to nudge it the same number of nudges down as I did right, which is 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can see that there's a bit of headspace or a bit of space down here at the bottom. You can either hold down Control so all of your rectangles are highlighted, and you can move your entire you can move all of these rectangles down so that they fill the space evenly, or I'm going to leave a little extra space here at the bottom so I can include my project title. All right, so that is step 1. Okay, what we're going to do next is we're going to start bringing in the images that we took that demonstrate our understanding of shutter speed. Okay, so all right, so like I said, the next step is to add our images that demonstrate our shutter speed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize my Photoshop document and just slide it over here to the left side of my screen. I have room, so I can make it a little bit bigger if I want to, so I can see all of my squares. And then I saved all of my files into this shutter speed folder. And here I'll resize that so it's easy to see my images. And we're ready to go. So the first thing is I want to make sure that I'm selected on the right rectangle. If you are having trouble knowing which one's which, you can always rename them so that you know exactly where they are. Because it's very important that you're selected on the right, on the correct rectangle when you import your image. So we'll know exactly where we want everything to go now. And I'm going to start with so I have 3 images. One is a pair, a pinwheel, and a taxi. So I'm going to start with my pair. Okay, I'm going to drag, let me select my top left rectangle. I'm going to drag my pair, right? That shows that I'm able to freeze motion. I'm going to set my pair so it's 3 inches wide, because that's the smaller of the dimensions. I want it to be at least 3 inches so we don't see any of that blue background. There we go. Once I've placed it, remember you hit enter, and then you can right click over here on the image layer, and you say create clipping mask. Okay, once you've done that, you want to position your pair or whatever the image that you took is. That looks good to me. So again, it's the same width as the rectangle. It's just the height is different, so I can only move it up and down. I cannot move it left or right. Otherwise, I'll see that background. Okay, and then the next thing I'll do is I'll bring in on the bottom left, I'm going to bring in this pair. Change the width to 3 inches, approximately. Hit enter, and then I'll go to that image over here in the layer panel, and I'll say create clipping mask. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set my image to a place where we're able to see the motion. So I don't want to put it up too high. Right there is probably fine. And I might go back down to my other pair and just bring it down a little bit. Okay, so you can see that sort of motion because this was taken at 1/200th of a second versus this one, which was 1/15th of a second. So a much slower shutter speed right here. Sorry, this was taken at 1/15th of a second, so it's much slower shutter speed. All right, let's go here, top center. I'm going to bring in this pinwheel. Set it to the far left. Okay, I'm going to place it. I'm just going to nudge it over. Okay, and then we'll create a clipping mask. Okay, I don't like how that came out, so I'm going to try it one more time. And then we'll just create the clipping mask again. There we go. So there's my pinwheel that shows that I froze motion. And then we'll go to bottom center and we'll add the pinwheel that shows motion. That implies motion. Hit enter, and then again, create clipping mask. And then we'll nudge both of these down just a little bit. Let's see. All right. There we go. So there's 2. And then lastly, top right, we're gonna bring this little toy taxi cab car on. Set create clipping mask. All right, let's see, let's move it actually just right up here in the front. There we go. And then last one. So bottom right, I'm gonna bring in my last image. Create clipping mask. Move it forward a little bit so it matches the top. There we go. All right, so the next step is I just need to add some text demonstrating or showing my shutter speeds that I used. To do that, I'm going to grab my text tool. I'm going to add a new layer. And I'm just going to go ahead. I took notes on exactly what the shutter speed was, but just as a reminder, you can always go to the image and then properties. And if you go to details, you can scroll down and it should have the shutter speed included there. So we'll just, for this pair, it was shot at sorry, 1/200th of a second. We'll bring this back on here, and then let's try and grab my text tool. So the key here is going to be able to find a place where it's going to look good. Play around a little bit. I'm not very happy with the ease of reading that, so okay, well I might come back to that. We'll play around with it. I'm just going to actually copy this. Actually, I kind of like that. That looks good. If you hold down, if you're holding the text tool and you highlight and then hold down Control on your keyboard, you can rotate it. And now I'm thinking I might actually change my color back to like a bright red. See how that comes up. And actually, I kind of like that. So this one was shot at 1/15th. So it took me a little while to get that first one set up, make sure everything looked all right. But now hopefully it'll go a second faster because I'm just going to be changing. One-fourth of a second. So always got to go back to the text tool to change the setting. Okay, and then last thing, just gotta change this to 1/750th of a second. Okay, there we go. So last step, let's just go ahead and add a background. I'm going to do that really simply just by grabbing my rectangle tool, no stroke. Maybe since we did don't need my images anymore, so maybe since we did the red text, I'll just create a red box around it. Remember that we need to move that all the way down to the bottom. It gives us that background. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my text tool one more time. And I'm going to just add some text at the bottom. Shutter speed. If you're not sure what's going on yet, it's because it's the same color. So I'm just going to change this to white. I'm just going to paste it over here on the side. And we'll go right back in here. And we'll say created by Chris Rubin. And I'm going to actually, instead of centering this, have it all aligned to the right. And then we'll just move it over here so it does align with the right. And that'll work for right now. So hope you enjoyed. Just make sure when you're finished, you file save save as, and you can put it in your Shutterspeed folder if you have one. And we'll call it Shutterspeed PSD. And then as a final reminder, the only way you can submit this is as a JPEG, so you have to go to File, Save for Web. You'll double check all of your settings for up, JPEG, and then you'll change your larger image dimension to 600 and hit save. And you'll see it saves as a format as images only, so that's good. You might want to give it a name like Shutterspeed Final to submit, whatever helps you make sure you're submitting the correct assignment or correct file. Select save, and you are done. All right. Thank you very much.